Welcome to episode 41 of the Danso Pitch Podcast. I am your host, Charles Danso, joined by my good friend Daniel. Daniel, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. This long Memorial Day weekend. Got a chance to relax a little bit. The weather hasn't been as kind to us, but it's Monday. We got a little sun out now, so I'm happy to be in the virtual studio recording. We're determined to get this content out to you guys, so we're doing it virtual for this session.
Exactly.
But
Exactly. Like Daniel said, everybody, we're definitely excited to, just kind of have this episode for you guys. By any means, as he mentioned, even if it is Memorial Weekend, we just want to get this content out to you guys. Continue to build our brand as well through the Danso Pitch. We feel like, it's a good, segue for people to kind of just better themselves through their business acumen as well as financial literacy. So without further ado, I first want to give a shout out to our YouTube viewership. Subscribe through the Danso Solutions channel. We do have all episodes of the Danso Pitch available, as well as this one, through the channel. Again, we will have a link described in the description of this episode, as well as follow us at the Danso Pitch on Instagram. Follow us as well. We'll provide our tags for you guys with any questions you guys may have of this episode, any previous or any future episodes. So without further ado, let's get started. This episode is something that's really near and dear to me. I'm pretty sure for Daniel as well. A lot of people have this question they ask themselves as, what's the better way to go through school? Is it a ways of, our meeting is starting? Okay. Apologies. So, what everybody was asking was, what is a better way of basically going through school? Is it through maybe a grad school, maybe the MBA route, a master's, or is it through certifications? A lot of people that work in a 9-to-5 life have, sometimes gone the route of getting certifications. Myself, I have a certification, and Daniel has his master's. So what we want to do is compare, contrast in this episode. Give you guys some real world examples, maybe get you guys thinking with any questions that you guys may have. Reach out to us after this episode drops. We're always available to answer any questions you guys may have. But the reason why we want to have this episode is to kind of just get you guys thinking outside the box. We live in a world now where, it doesn't have to be the generic masters or vice versa. You can get certifications in certain fields that you want to go through. Be the healthcare field, business field, technology field. There's so many things you can do outside of just the master's. But we will also give you some benefits of having a master's, maybe over a certification and so forth. So without further ado, Daniel, let's give them some insight as to the difference between maybe a master's and certification. Maybe give some advantages or disadvantages of the two.
Yeah, a certification, as most of you may know, is a professional certificate that, designates you have a certain proficiency in a specific skill area. So let's say you wanted to be an expert in like fixing computer systems, you would get a specific certification that tells the world that you can do this with security systems. Or if you're in the healthcare profession, you would get a healthcare certification that, either in nursing or as an RA or something where it proves that you can do this specific skill set. And it's generally a lot of, different professions where a certification is that there are more certifications for the same profession than there are master degrees for that exact profession. So one example is an MBA, which is a master's of business administration. Most people categorize an MBA as something that could be very broad because business is a very broad area to go into. But in that umbrella of business, there are certifications within that umbrella, such as getting a project management certification. You could get a certification in business principles, human resources. Like there's just a plethora of certifications that, depending on the area of business you want to go into, you could get that certification versus getting an entire MBA. So the advantages from a certification perspective is that you could virtually get a certification in anything. There are so many certifications out there from any industry. You know, as I mentioned, healthcare, business, IT. It just goes on and on. If you want to be a teacher, there is a plethora of certifications for you being a teacher. So the number of certifications out there, you just have to pick one and go with it, and you pretty much have a large pool to choose from. Whereas you compare it to, you know, a professional, a master's degree, there's generally only like a handful of master degrees that fit within a certain industry. Business, MBA. If you wanted to do computers, MS, a master's of science. You know, there's categorizations of that degree that in some cases, now you could have a master's degree in something that's very specific, um, but generally speaking, most master degree programs are going to have this umbrella that is very broad, where you still have to choose what you're going to do with it. A certificate, you kind of know what you're going to do with it. It's very specific and it's specialized.
Correct.
Um, you know, so
Just,
that's,
yeah, I
yep.
wanted to just quickly stay on that and just kind of expound on what you're basically saying. So for the audience, more so, obviously outside of you, Daniel, the certification definitely has that advantage based on what you touched upon. So example being like you said, maybe you want to make a career shift. That's an advantage of a certification. Because if you're certified in certain areas, like example, like wanting to get into the healthcare field, maybe you want to be a nurse. Maybe you want to be certified to be a barber or a hairstylist, you know, outside of just a generic 9 to 5. Because the one thing I do like about certifications is it touches more in depth outside of just the 9 to 5 world, but also the entrepreneur world or the self-employment world.
Mm-hmm.
That's where certifications come into play. Electrician, that's a certification. You know, if you wanna get into that field, that's something that's important. So I think changing careers is one aspect. Another aspect as well is it's less costly than a master's. Obviously, Daniel, you touched more upon that, you know, as we continue this episode. But one thing I know from just people that have went the master's route and just doing research upon myself is just figuring that the difference is sometimes could be as much as 20,000 to as much as even $50,000 difference than let's say an MBA. Let's say you wanted to go that route, or like you said, a Master's of Science. And I think that's something that's important to know. Because example, like Daniel said, having a Master's of Science or MBA, you're very concentrated in one specific area. That's specific, let's say like business. If you get an MS, you have to get an MS in finance because of the fact that you're in business. If you're getting a master's in business administration, you only have like is it like 6 to 7 like different like concentrated fields you're gonna get that degree concentrated in.
Mm-hmm.
But in certifications, yeah, you have over like 100 to 200 different types of career paths you can go at a more affordable rate. So I think that's also important to note. And also, I think if you want to basically get licensing through the state, some certifications have to come into play. Like example, if you're let's say you want to go an insurance route, you have to get some state licensing. So that's where certifications come into play outside of just having a master's. So example, like I said, less costly, meets state requirements for some certifications, and you can advance or change careers altogether with a certification. I'll let you continue though, Daniel.
Yeah, and like that's a great point to bring up about switching careers, because you know, even back in the day, the common thought was like, okay, if you're going to switch careers, you would have to probably go back to school and get another degree to pursue this avenue. And in some cases, yes, like if you wanted to like become a lawyer, if you wanted to go the doctor route, you would probably have to go to graduate school and go that route for those professions. But if you're trying to do a career switch where it's like, okay, maybe I don't want to be in computers anymore, maybe I don't want to be in finance anymore, and I want to just switch to something that's more human resource related, or I want to switch to something that's, you know, less technical, or maybe I just want to go into teaching. You don't necessarily have to go back to school to pursue a master's degree for something that you could get a certification for that may be an equivalent in experience. Because, you know, one thing that will never really, one thing that's pretty much paramount in the business world and just in working in general is experience. So, you know, if you've graduated, you've got your bachelor's and you start working, you're working for like 3-4 years, whatever the case is, and you decide, you know what, you know, maybe you haven't decided that you want to go to grad school yet. You know, you're just kind of taking your time, making your money, and then you figure out, you know what, this is not really the lane for me. There's options where you'll have certifications that, for example, like I'm personally doing a security plus certification, and those requirements, if you just look at some of the bios that they have, is hey, 2 years in this field is recommended before you have this cert, and they'll have a range of, okay, you take this cert, you get the cert, and your salary range can increase between 2 to 5,000, let's say. So that's like on the short end and on the short term where you're saving money instead of, you know, paying 30,000 or 50,000 to go to grad school. You can get a certification to make that career switch in the short interim period. And when you pass, you'll have that advantage. Now, the caveat to all of this is that if you do decide to go the master's degree route, the investment is large up front. And that's like a very, you know, there's a lot of discussion around, okay, the pricing of you know, grad school. And that's a big factor and a big determining that's what's going to determine really whether you go or not ultimately is the financial impact. Because as we all know, you know, these loans are just, you know, it's pretty high. It's pretty high for graduate loans. But the long term, you know, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years over time, you know, statistically, and I think the Bureau of Labor Statistics has about 37% of, you know, those who have master's degrees have seen a large increase in their salary over time. So, you know, if you are in the mindset of I'm building a career with this 9 to 5, and you know, I want to be like a manager, a director, you know, I want to be very high in my company or in my industry, then a master's degree may be the route for you to go to, because it represents, well, one, you do get a large network of individuals depending on the school you go to. But even then, you know, you're sitting, when you're at a master's level, like for me, an MBA, you're sitting in a level where everyone in that room, for the most part, has the mindset of, I'm planning to be a CEO of some company one day, or I'm planning to be a manager, a high level manager of a company someday. So everybody's kind of on that mindset where, you know, I'm learning and I'm doing this so that I can be in that position 5-10 years down the road. So you maintain that network, and that is, you know, you have that circle of like-minded people. But also, you when you finish, you know, when you have that degree and you're going through your career and you're going through the motions, you just see that on a resume. Master's degree from wherever school, you know, master's degree from Columbia, master's degree from Baruch. Like that just speaks volume in itself when you're talking about salary, it gives you better negotiations because you have more to bring to the table on that aspect. Now, the argument could be said the same thing for certifications, but if you look at a resume, certification, this is just visually. Like if I'm a human resource person, I'm looking at a resume. The first thing you see at the top is usually education. So you would see the master's degree first before you would see certifications. Now, most resumes, they would go in that order. Some resumes have certifications at the top, depends on your preference, but generally speaking, the education will pop out first before the certifications. So, you know, it all depends on the lens you're going from. If you're looking for advancement in career to go like to a CEO, to a manager level, a master's degree may be the option. But if you're in a position where you're trying to go more the entrepreneurial route, you're working this job, but you want to do a career change, but you want the career change to be something that's in line with what you're passionate about. Let's say you are doing, finance, but you decide you want to fix systems for people. Like your passions in IT. You don't have to really necessarily get another MS or get an MS to do IT. You could just start with some simple CompTIA certifications, right? You can get a Network Plus, you can get a Security Plus, you can get small things like that, and then do your little hustle on the side, right, of fixing systems. And then if the job or the career comes into your lane, you can make the switch. And the cost between spending 30,000 up for a master's degree versus probably spending 500 to 1,000 on getting the certification, getting the training materials and such forth, you could weigh that and you see what the outcome is. But and there is no right and wrong with this. This is a discussion, right, Charles? Like, we're laying it out on the table for you. Me personally, I've gone through both routes. I've done the MBA route. And right now I'm doing the certification route. So both sides, there is no right and wrong, but there is opportunity cost, right? Because an MBA or a master's degree in whatever you do, you're the two things that are always going to take up the two opportunity costs. It's always time and it's always money. Most master's degree is a lot of time, and Charles, most, and they're expensive, right?
I
It's
agree. I mean, what you're kind of just saying, and the reason why I let you speak more so to it was because end of the day, I just went the certification route, but I wanted the audience to also gauge what it's like to go through the MBA process. And obviously, I can't give an in-depth, kind of visualization of that because I haven't been through that process you have. So that's why I wanted to basically just share that with the audience. But as you kind of emphasized, there are key things that you did emphasize in which I agreed and also to some aspect disagreed on. What the part that I did agree on that you stated, like you said, was the fact of end of the day, with an MBA, is usually the network as to why, like you said, you want to get it. Because end of the day, sometimes when you're in a class with various people that work in different careers, you can also open the doors to maybe, let's say, somebody works for ABC company and you're trying to go to XYZ company. Maybe that person may know somebody, or themselves that can give you that, give you that look to say, hey, if you're looking to apply through this thing, I could give you that, give you that look because I work in this company, or I know this human resources person that could look at your resume as opposed to this other person. And now that you're getting the MBA, that as opposed to you coming in as an analyst level, you can maybe go to an associate, a VP level, vice president level, or even a director level, like you said. So that is an opportunity, a great opportunity for having an MBA. Also, like you said, not everybody is going to be a CEO. Not everybody knows how to run a successful business. Not everybody can venture out and start their own business. A lot of people now are starting their own businesses, but they're realizing that it's a lot more expensive because you're going to have to spend a lot of your money early on. You're also going to have to deal with a lot of, unsuccessful years before finding that successful year. And a lot of people can't deal with that pressure because you have a lot of financial burdens. A lot of people have kids. A lot of people, a lot of people like to travel. They like to, a lot of people have undergrad debt or credit card debt, whatever the case is. So they're like, I'm not willing to sacrifice this amount of years because I got to take care of X, Y, and Z. So with an MBA, even though it is a negative because, again, in the aspect of you are going to have to give up a lot of money, whether you're paying for it, whether your company's paying for it, whether the government's paying for it. Either way, you're going to have to pay a lot for an MBA, but it can quickly advance you in the career. So as opposed to you making maybe 70 to 80,000 with an MBA, you could eventually make six figures, 100, anywhere between 100, 120, 140K. And that's with any type of position in terms of more so in the higher tier world. Now, again, getting a master's as a social worker, for my social workers out there, like I have a lot of friends that are social workers that have masters, and they ain't making money like a banker does, or maybe a lawyer does, or something of that nature. And that's just the truth. But at the end of the day, it does bring the prestige, like you said, because of the fact that you can say that, hey, you have a master's from this. So, on resumes, if you were to make a career change, I know some people that work in my field in Wall Street in banking. They were social workers, and then they came in and worked in human resources, and a lot of them said that they got the job they know because they had a master's. So again, that could put you in to certain doors. Alternatively, with certifications, why I prefer certifications is because I'm a 9-to-5 worker, but I also have my own business. So with a certification, certain certifications you need, like example, I'm trying to learn how to be a tax preparer. I need to get a certification for that. I'm trying to learn how to manage data. I went to Columbia University. I did an online program through that school and learned how to do Python, how to do data management online through coding. So these are all certifications that you can get. If I think when you get certifications, it's more so your personal preference, not societal preference. I think with an MBA is more societal preferences most of the time. And what I mean by societal preferences is usually, like you emphasized, Daniel, when an HR manager sees MBA from Columbia, Yale, Rutgers, whatever school you went to, Albany, whatever school you went to, they're like, oh, he got an MBA, he got a master's in business administration, he got a master's in marketing, public policy, whatever the case is that you're going to get, your MBA in. It's just the fact that you have that master's in. The fact that you have that master's 9 out of 10 times, because we have ingratiated that in our head that having a master's, that means that you are at the highest form of education. So, that's why I'm sure our parents, we grew up on, our parents are like, oh, undergrad is nothing. Like, when you get an undergrad degree, you got to get the master's. That's how you're going to get the higher paying job, this and that, which is true to some aspect. Because when you do have a master's, well, I would hope that you would try to advance your career. If you have an MBA or a master's and you're in the same position, then I don't know why the fuck you went to school to spend all that damn money. But the point is, usually when you do get that, you're trying to advance in your career. But that's the prestige that we were, or what we were told, ingratiated into our head early on. But the fact now we live in an era where we have businesses, our friends are starting businesses, our family members, our coworkers. So it's very expansive now in terms of the education you can get. You can go online now and just take a certain course just to learn how to do a certain thing. Me and you, Daniel, have done that. You've emphasized that to me. I emphasize that to you daily. I like I said, I wanted to learn how trademarks work for businesses. I just go online to this website, Coursera. I look up how a trademark works for a business. I take a month to 2 month course on it. They just let me pass. Sometimes it's even free. So you can learn this now online. So now that's why I think certifications are now starting to be more appreciated, because now people are saying that I don't need to be necessarily under the 9-to-5 regime in terms of that corporate structure. I can work a corporate job, but I can also do my side hustle, like you said. I can do my own thing where I don't necessarily have to be as dependent on a corporate structure. I can do it myself, make my own money, do it my own way. So with a certification, that allows you to teach you a skill set that you can do and learn on your own without having to go through the corporate structure of learning. That's where MBA teaches. But one thing I will say as an MBA, sometimes it can also teach you as an entrepreneur is how to run a business, how management works, how you can operate as a CEO, as a manager. I think that, and I'm sure Daniel, you can emphasize that. Maybe some classes putting you in groups, teaching you how to work on cases, projects, because I've heard MBAs are more project based in terms of the actual class structure. It's not like an
Yeah.
undergrad. So that teaches you how to work in an environment, how to manage different personalities, maybe different types of people. So I think that's also a benefit for an MBA. So ultimately, what the most important thing I will emphasize to the audience member and even ourselves is take the route you feel is most comfortable for you. Don't necessarily do it because of what society deems is the better route for you. Because end of the day, you're the one that's ultimately going to be working. You're the one that's going to have to spend that type of money or spend that time, so to speak. I think one thing you emphasize, Daniel, and one thing that I'll emphasize is time. Because remember, whether you go an MBA route or certification, you're putting your time, you're putting your sweat, you're not sleeping a lot of nights. Doesn't matter. So the thing is, if you're gonna go through it, make sure you're going all the way. Don't go through it because you think that, hey, maybe I could make 120,000 or make 140,000, however much. So maybe the MBA is a better route. That's not necessarily always true because some people I know have MBAs, but they haven't progressed because they're not the best workers. They don't know how to converse with certain people when they're in a room with like managers and this and that. They don't know how to stand out from everybody else. And that's one thing you also have to do is you have to learn how to apply your skills in the real workforce, whether you do it by yourself or you're doing it in a corporation. So that's another thing that you also have to pay attention to when you have an MBA or a certification is how you are as well, because it's not just the physical aspect of you going there and taking the classes and passing. There's also the mental aspect is how you applying this, how are you interacting with your coworkers, how are you interacting with management. So that's also an important aspect. So that's why I think those are factors to weigh in a certification and a master's. There are advantages, there are disadvantages, but the most important thing is time, the skill set, how you're applying the skills, and also, like you said, the financial burden of it, Daniel.
Yeah, and I really like that I want to circle back on that where you said, it's a personal choice because I think that especially when it comes to the decision to pursue a master's degree, most of the time it may not feel like a choice or it's a choice that's, not it's not a long term. Long term, it's not much thought put into it. It's kind of like you're in a routine. Like, okay, I've graduated, I have my bachelor's. The next logical step is just to go to grad school. But it's like, okay, why am I going to grad school? Like there's like that because, you know, the thing with like the degrees, with the certifications and all of these things that you put on your resume, it's just to make you look good on paper. Like nobody really knows you until you start working and they get a feel of how you interact with management and how you perform at your job and all of these different factors that really make the difference in where you move and navigate in your professional career. The master's degree is just a stepping stone. You come in here, but if you don't have that work ethic, if you don't have the interpersonal skills to advance yourself, then that's all you're going to be is here. You're not going to excel as much as you can if you had those core skill sets that you need to multiply what your master's degree would do for you or your certification will do for you, right? So I think that level of thought has to come in before you make that long-term commitment. You kind of have to know yourself and as I was going through the journey of getting into grad school and stuff, I worked before I decided to go back. So I didn't go in right away. I worked for, albeit I worked for a summer. um I worked in supply chain. I worked in corporate world for a little bit before I went back. But in that interim period, I was able to understand myself as an employee, and I understood where I wanted to go in that interim period. But, in some cases, that opportunity doesn't happen. Sometimes it's just where you finish your undergrad and you just go straight into grad school. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, depending on your where you're trying to go, some people know early on that this is what I want to do. I want to be a doctor. So I like, it's the straight and narrow. You have to, do the necessary steps, and grad school is part of that step. Or if you're trying to be a lawyer, you have to get your JD. Like, there's like, some of those things are pretty much set. But if you're in a position where there's more flexibility, IT roles, general business roles, finance roles, some of those things, it's probably not immediately necessary, and sometimes it's probably preferred that you have a little bit of professional experience before you decide to make that commitment of grad school, because then there's more leverage in the conversation, right? Like, you have the professional experience, and now you can go to your boss, your manager, and say, hey, like, I've been doing XYZ for the company, and now I'm getting this master's degree. And there's a level of conversation that can be leveraged where you can get that promotion, you can get that raise, or you can make that connection in grad school to get a better position somewhere else. And also, and Charles, I think you touched on it too, as you're working, some of these jobs that you're working in will pay for your, or at least in part of your master's degree program. Some companies give you like 5,000 towards tuition, 10,000, whatever the case is. Leverage that. Like, you don't have to immediately jump into grad school. You could take time, 1 to 2 years working, figure out a way to have the job you're working for pay for some of your grad school expenses if that's the role you want to do. That way you're not burdening yourself with all this debt that happens, because grad school is expensive. I'll tell you, I my MBA, listen, I went to Albany, and relatively speaking, compared to like Columbia and all those big name schools, it was relatively it's cheaper than those schools, but it's still expensive, right? Like, and some of these programs range from 2 to 3 years, depending on what master's program you go for. So, those are some things to really consider. And also, on the certification side, your job will sometimes help you pay for certain certifications as well. Like, if you're, I right now I'm working in an accounting firm, so they will help sponsor some payments for like getting a CPA, being like a certified public accountant, or if you wanted to get a CIA, or if you wanted to do anything accounting related, that's what they do. So depending on what job you work for, if you're in human resources or if you're in IT, like, they definitely have something where you could, leverage their resources, have them either pay for your study materials, pay for the exam, because you can always pitch the message that you're getting this certification, or you're getting this degree to not only better yourself, but to better your performance for the company, right? Because the company is going to invest in you, hoping that you will yield the results that this program is going to give you and the company. So those are some just little tidbits to consider, because it's a marathon at the end of the day, right? It's a marathon, and when deciding whether it's grad school or certifications or whatever route you want to go to, it ultimately it is your choice, and the result is going to be what you put into it, and you're only going to excel as much as you put the work in and know who you are as a professional employee, or as a professional entrepreneur. It's going to be your choice, because everything that's led up, high school, bachelor's, it probably, in most cases, you were just kind of going with the flow, So everybody's situation is different, but when it comes to this level where it's like, okay, now I'm really building my career, I'm like building my life, it's your choice now. The reins are in your hands, the ball is in your court. So it's good to just take that time, reflect, analyze who you are, and then make the decision, because there's no wrong time to do it and there's no right time to do it. Right? The time is when you decide it's time.
Yeah,
And
I agree with what you're saying, and for me, I've worked in banking. I've worked from as a temporary worker to a full-time worker. I've gotten fired. I've gotten rehired. I've gotten fired again. I've gotten position. So trust me, I'm telling you to say, like, it's really a marathon. And life really is, especially when you're working in a corporate structure. The most important thing for me that I've learned is, if you are going to get a higher education, either be a certification or be a master's or MBA, whatever it is, it's important to know what is your life after that. I think that's the most important thing to think about. It once I get that certification, I get that master's, what am I going to do with that professionally? Am I going to stay in the current career that I'm in, the corporation that I work for, whatever it is? Am I going to be doing that for 5 to 10 years? Do I see myself as a vice president, as a senior manager, as even maybe I could get myself up to the CEO level at some point? If you ever notice, for those that are listening, and just give me some time, Daniel, with this. If you ever, for the audience listening, just one day sit down and just look at the path of each person that runs your corporation, your 9-to-5 job, the CEO. A lot of times they do have masters. And a lot of times they've been working at that company for 20, 30, even some people 40 years before they got to that level. Sometimes they've worked as head managers at a different company, and then they came to this corporation to become the CEO. And I'm willing to say that is because, end of the day, that's the path they laid out for themselves. They knew they were going to get to that level, but they realized they had to get through different hurdles. Especially people that look like us, people of color. I can never stress that enough. Especially, I'm not a woman, but even they get it worse. Black women at that. Black women are the least Fortune 500 CEOs. Black people in general are the least compared to white CEOs that are even men at that. Because even white women get it as well, but now obviously not to the level of us. So it's important to note that as a minority, as a Black person, as a Latino, whatever it is, the issue is, what are you doing that's going to help your path in the next, I won't even say 5 years, the next year, the next 2 years ahead of you. Because at the end of the day, you should have a 2-year plan. Usually you should look to be promoted in a job in the span of 2 to 3 years. So what that means is, are you going to go to the next level? If you're not, that's fine. But even if you're not going to go up, you have to go to the next career. You just can't stay idle. And if outside of just the circumstance I'm saying of children and all that, that's different. I'm just speaking about you being a young person. You don't really have kids. You're not married yet. You're just trying to advance your career. It's important that if you are getting a master's, if you are getting a certification, that you're applying those skills. That's so important. I really stress it because we spend so much money in school and we never yield the returns. We end up, our parents grew up, went to school, they ended up in their 60s, 70s before they finally ended up paying back this loan. And a lot of times, a lot of them didn't even go up to become a CEO. They ended up staying in the same position for years because they had kids, this and that. So my point is, we're in the generation now, and I'm speaking to my generation, the people that are in their mid-20s to late 20s to early 30s and mid-30s. And even 40s to some people. Right now is a time that you can really leverage the age of information. We're in the age of information. So you should be studying that, like Daniel said. Even if you're studying pay raises, pay gaps, how much should you be paid? I'll tell you right now, I'm underpaid in my job. In my 9-to-5, job that I work with in banking, for some personal information, I won't give that company, but I've said it in previous episodes. I'm underpaid. I'm pretty sure, Daniel, to some aspect, you are as well. So what does that say? That means that compared to my other counterparts, I'm receiving less money. Maybe it's because of my skin color. Maybe maybe I don't have the right certification, like you said, or master's degree, whatever the case is. But I'm getting certifications in the technology world because that's the next move I'm trying to make. And I'm trying to make a lateral move and become a manager in that next position. That's why I got the certification I got in data management. Alternatively, Daniel, you have a master's, and I know you can speak to that. You got the master's to get into the position you are now. Now you're getting a certification to get the concentration in that position that you want to get to. So that's very important to note as well. So what I'm trying to say is, again, for the audience that's listening, weigh your options. Look at how much you're going to have to spend to get that next degree, if it's a certification or master's. Look at the position you're willing to get after you complete that, because I'm telling you, do not get it and just sit in the same spot and see your coworkers rise and you're just sitting there. You got to get yourself taken care of. You got to get the future generation taken care of. That's how you do it. And that's how those people that are successful, your CEOs, your managers, that's how they did it. So that's important to note. Study the people around you that you want their position and take that shit by any means. That's how I feel. So
yeah. Yeah, you pretty much said it all, Charles. I think my closing thoughts on this whole conversation and to what you alluded to earlier, complacency is the enemy of progression, right? So, just make sure whichever route you take, it's progressing you to where you want to go. Don't it's never that you've arrived, like you're always gonna want better income levels. You're always gonna desire to be a better professional or have better acumen in a certain field. And that's just by nature. By nature, we want to be better in something always, whether it is we have higher income levels or, we learn a new skill set. So use that, get out there and make the sacrifices that's needed. If it is grad school, take the steps that we've discussed, really think about it and then just go for it. Go all in, like just if that's the route you want to go, you're all in with it. Learn everything, network with everybody, because you never know. It's the saying that we had in like middle school or high school. Like, you don't know who the person next to you is going to be 10, 15 years from now. That next person, that person beside you could be your next boss, right? Like, so you never know. So, leverage that network system and apply the skills and the techniques that you learn. Talk to your professors, really get on a really like good baseline with them, because they've been in the industry longer than we have, like their professors, so they know what they're talking about. For me, most of my professors, they've worked in the corporate world, whether it was finance, whether it was security, information security. And, for the most part, they were bringing home the big bucks, right? So, I made sure that I listened to them and took copious notes on what I needed to do to get to the next step. And I knew that certifications for me in this field where I'm trying to transition into, being more cyber focused as opposed to where I'm at now, which is more finance focused, is the necessary step I have to take personally and professionally. And that is kind of a baseline for wherever someone wants to go, because you want to listen to the right people. If you want to go somewhere, if you want to be at a certain position in life, you have to listen to the people who have been there and who can guide you in that way. Whether that's a mentor or whether that's just a general teacher that you have. The fact is, if they're there, if they've been there, then watch them, mimic them. Understand how they like. It's the same what y'all said with with CEOs that have worked for like 20, 30 years. Like if you want to be a CEO at this company or in this industry, learn from that CEO by however, by any means necessary, however you can learn, even if it's just observation. You may not be able to talk to the CEO of the company, but you can kind of leverage what you see based on how employees respond to his movements or how management works within, an organization, because you could always learn within any company, within any area you're working in, even if it's a job you don't like. If you really hate waking up Monday, Tuesday to go to work, um, you can still learn a lot from working at a company. There's so many things, there's so many key nuggets within an organization if you're working that you can leverage, take, build your own business with it, because every day you're learning a new skill, whether you realize it consciously or not. You're learning a new skill. So take all of that knowledge and just apply it. Certifications, master degrees, whatever avenue you choose, one is not better than the other. It's all dependent on your preference. But you know, make sure that you give it some great thought. Think about it and go all in. Go all in. It's only, the only limitations are what you set. So there's really no limit to how many certs you get. If you want to have 5 master degrees, hey, go for it. But just think about the end result. Where am I going to be 5 years from now if I go this route? What's the destination I'm trying to get to with it?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. And like myself and Daniel emphasized for the audience tuning in again, it's up to you. The decision is yours, but just make sure that you are sacrificing your time, your finances. So make sure if you are going that route, whatever route you choose, is the route that's going to excel in your career and your lifestyle, so to speak. Thank you for the audience tuning in again. Subscribe to our YouTube through the Danso Solutions channel. The link will be provided in this episode's description. Again, this is masters versus certifications. Which one is the better route for the audience tuning in? If you're looking to promote your business through the Danso Pitch, email us at the Danso Financial Group, the Danso Pitch. You can DM us directly. We are looking for any small businesses looking to promote their business. Reach out to us directly. We will have that for you guys. We will try to do an in-person episode next time that we meet, probably next week or the following week. Stay tuned, subscribe for updates on future episodes as well as previous episodes. We are available through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube at the Danso Pitch. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week, and looking forward to this episode dropping probably Wednesday when you guys hear this. Take care.